Chris Vasquez, CEO of Quantum Talent. Thank you so much for joining us on our podcast. How you doing?
Thanks for having me, brother. Doing great.
We've been friends for a little bit now. I wanted you to be a guest for several reasons, but one of the main reasons is you are both one of the most successful self-made entrepreneurs I've ever met, but also you tend to have one of the most humble outlooks and growth mindsets that I've ever encountered. And so I think the audience would benefit greatly, I think, to learn a bit about you, how you've transformed yourself into the person you are today. Thank you for your time.
Oh, thanks, man. Well, I'll do my best to share whatever's been helpful for me. So appreciate you having me on.
Of course, of course. So Chris, walk us through, who is Chris? Where did you grow up? How did you kind of get into the business that you're currently in?
I'll give you the truncated version. I grew up in California, Silicon Valley, had no ties to tech at that point. But yeah, I grew up in Silicon Valley, went to high school over there, went over to San Diego for college. And that's kind of where the segue into the industry is, because I was at a career fair at University of San Diego. I went to college. All candor, I was hitting on a girl at the career fair named Molly. She caught my attention, and I was in 11th grade at the time, or 12th grade, I forgot which one, but I was getting ready to look for a job after school. And so I approached her. We started talking. She lured me into an interview, and I essentially did 3 or 4 interviews, got the job, and fell into the recruiting space. So that's how I got into the field. It was just a random career fair at University of San Diego. So I was just a lost, 21, 22-year-old kid just trying to figure out how to be successful at that point. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was out just at frat parties 3-4 nights a week, just trying to figure life out. I got lucky, man, because I love a few things. One is I just love people. I'm a huge connector. I was going to be a writer before I got into the industry I'm in now. But long story short, interviewed one of my favorite authors at the University of San Diego named Tim O'Brien, the author of The Things They Carried. I did the big read. I hosted him there, interviewed him, and he said, Chris, you should not be an author. I sit in my underwear 10 hours a day and write behind a computer screen. You're way too social. Like, you belong out with people in the world. I quickly decided to can that dream. And I just fell into recruiting, where it's just all about connecting with people, helping people find jobs. And then later on that evolved into actually building companies, which is where I get a lot of my excitement nowadays. But it really started there, man. I fell into recruiting out of school, went around, popped around a few companies, learned the ropes, figured out what I liked, what I didn't like, which I think is a big part of finding your purpose, is trying a lot of things and taking in that data and modifying from that. And, I didn't launch my company until 3 years ago when I was 29 years old. So that's kind of the short of it.
Well, Chris, so you fell in love with this girl in 11th grade. All dreams of being a doctor, an engineer, computer scientist went out the window. You suddenly find yourself in the recruiting game. So talk me through, like, what is the recruiting game? Like, if you were to describe it to other people, I think some people are a little familiar if they've worked with headhunters, but like in particular, like, what is the business model and how, kind of what is the key value add that you guys have?
So recruiting is the biggest industry that most people have never heard of. So if you look at any company that's growing needs to hire people. Now, usually it's a combination of internal efforts. You hire your own recruiters internally, your own HR people. But most companies, I don't know the exact figure, but it's got to be 90+% of companies to some extent will use outside help to hire specialists and bring in top talent into their companies. So the way I look at it is, great founders have to build great teams, and great teams build great companies. So it all starts with building out your executive suites, and then you need help to actually make sure you're making the right hires, because the success of any company is determined by the quality of people on the team and the level of cohesion those people cooperate and collaborate with. So recruiting is just all about getting the right people on the team so you can build and execute against your vision, right? So every founder, including Steve Jobs, said that it's the most important thing you can do. The number one job of any CEO is to recruit great talent. And so, in my opinion, a great recruiting partner will be the competitive edge to help you beat the competition, because the person or the company that has the best talent, that knows how to use those people in the right seats in the right ways, will win. So that's essentially what we do, is we just go out there, we headhunt the best people in the world for the right roles, get them excited about the vision, the mission, and we help these founders close them and build iconic companies.
Dude, that's never been more true. So we recently have been cycling through a couple of new hires, and the difference between an A player and even just like a A minus B plus player is night and day. And for
Oh
me
yeah.
as the CEO of our company, it's like one needs handholding, one is coming with active ideas and solutions before I even need to think about it. And it just,
Yep.
so one's training your energy, one is like helping me expand at a rate. And it's like, I'm happy to pay 3x the price of the prior person because this person makes my life so much easier and brings in new business, new opportunities, etc. So I love the part that you talked about how recruiting is basically the most lucrative business that nobody thinks about. And I don't know a single kid who's grown up is like, hey, I want to be the world's greatest recruiter in the world. And yet, right? And yet you've become, a self-made decamillionaire, like in a cash flowing business that is amazing in a niche that like not many people are thinking about. Like, was there ever a point in your mind where you're like, hey, I want to be in a sexier niche, not this one? Or is like, you just kind of picked one. You're like, I see how the business works. I know the cash flow model. Let me just put my head down and see where this takes me.
That's an interesting question because before I launched my company, I didn't think recruiting was sexy at all, right? I didn't think it was. And I wanted to get out of the industry because I just felt like it lacked passion. I was working at the time, for context, with a lot of Fortune 500 companies like Intuit, Qualcomm, and there's different types of recruiting, right? There's executive recruiting, there's staffing, which is more individual contributors, and there's consulting, right, where you're placing consultants for projects with bigger companies. So I was doing a lot of consultants and a lot of other stuff that wasn't as interesting to me. Now it is lucrative, but I was bored. It was just, working with the cog in the wheel type companies. And it's great for some people, but it wasn't for me. And so recruiting is a super lucrative model. And just to break that down, you essentially take a percentage of the commission for the salaries you place. So for instance, if you're an executive recruiter and you place a $500,000 salary person, you would take 30% of that as a fee, right? For engineers, it might be 20 to 25% on a $250,000 salary. So each placement you can see can actually start stacking up quite a bit. And so the model itself is lucrative, but for me, the industry, I wasn't as passionate about it. I was placing engineers and some directors and people at companies like Intuit and Qualcomm, but I said, if I was going to stay in this industry, then what would inspire me to continue going on? What kind of company would inspire me? Because I couldn't find it. The three I went to just didn't do it for me. So I had to think, what could I create? And then bet that I could create that and hope it existed, right? So I said, number one, I only want to work with startups. I want to work with passionate founders that want to build iconic companies, that want to build the future. I want to work with them, right? I want to help them build their executive teams, help them build their entire companies, not just place a few people. I want to have a deep, intimate relationship, be in the trenches, and really be a monumental part of their success. I want to invest in these companies. So I want to take sweat equity and convert cash into equity so I could actually have stake in the game so that when they're ringing the bell in New York 5-7 years down the road, I'm either there with them or they're calling me, congratulating me because we shared in that victory together. And I just wanted to work with A players, man. I wanted to work with the best in the world. I saw a lot of these companies and I didn't have a lot of enthusiasm or passion because I was working with a lot of people side by side that just didn't have a lot of enthusiasm for their job. And that created a culture of this mediocrity. So everywhere I went, I just felt like there was so much more to do, so much more passion, so much more impact that was possible. And so I had to go create that. I said, if this doesn't exist in my experience yet, I have to go create the firm that I would be inspired to work at. And so I set out to get the hottest portfolio of venture capital backed startups, work with the hottest founders, make those high impact placements at the exec suite, the ones that were really driving the growth of the companies, working with the top VCs. And after building that over a course of years of just grinding 100-hour weeks and getting partnerships with Andreessen Horowitz and top VCs and working with companies like ClickUp and Alchemy and Autograph and all these cool companies, then it got fun. Then it got sexy, right? But I created the sexy. I didn't say, hey, like recruiting on LinkedIn is sexy. And trust me, if you're going to build a business that provides a sexy lifestyle, you're going to have to do a lot of unsexy shit. Building businesses is not sexy at all. But there's highlights that look sexy, right? Because you have the lifestyle now. You might be on the boat or on the jet, or you have a nice spot, or you're working with some high profile people where a magazine might do a feature on somebody you placed. Like there's some cool parts about it, but my whole thing was you got to create what you wanted. And for me, working with Fortune 500s didn't feel authentically fun to me. So I didn't feel excited about it. So I created the sexy company that I wanted. It's all the lens you look through it, right? Like you could say, hey, recruiting, all we do is put people in seats and put them in companies. That's one way to look at it. I look at it like I am the most important person building iconic companies with founders that are changing the world. Like that to me is sexy, that I get to be at the center of those conversations and placing the people that are building the future of these companies that are changing the world around us. That to me is sexy, right? But again, that's really just how I perceive it. So I think a lot of people that feel like what they're doing isn't fun or sexy or hot, a lot of it's just your perception of what you're doing.
Totally, totally. I think one of the coolest aspects of our shared journey, so obviously we're both self-made individuals, self-made multimillionaires, the shared experience that I didn't realize until I think a couple of weeks into meeting in person is that we both shared a period of several months, for me, I think it was like 6 months of backpacking. So where we kind of broke away from the modern world, we traveled across Europe, Asia, slept in those 8-person hostels. Do you think part of that was integral for us to be where we are today? Because without that period, I think about it a lot. I haven't pinpointed exactly why yet, but I know that period of time where I broke away from the corporate world and really kind of saw the world on a super shoestring budget and kind of seeing like, what do I actually want out of life for me was imperative for me to not worry about other people's judgments, not worry about prestige as for my former peer groups, and then allowing to build brick by brick the business that we started today. Is that something that you think helped you a lot in your process, or kind of describe that period of your life?
100%. And you can't really fully see it until you look backwards. But I think if you want to build an amazing company, a few things are prerequisites. You have to have courage. And courage is a muscle that's built over time. If you've never done anything that scared you throughout your whole life, you're probably not going to take the big leap to put your entire financial future on the line. You have to be able to deal with ambiguity. Put yourself in situations where you don't know what the hell you're doing, but you know you can figure it out, right? And in our industry, you have to be able to connect with a lot of people. A lot of the people I work with are from India, from China, from Japan, from various countries. And so when I look back at those experiences, they all helped me in massive ways. So first was courage, right? I was working a safe job, making great money with benefits. I left that to go travel to 25 countries. And I became a yoga teacher in India. I rode a motorcycle in Vietnam. I taught English all over Africa, Asia. I did things that made me really uncomfortable and really challenged my perception of myself, my identity, and allowed me to just elastically grow in quantum leaps. And so I got used to and I trained the muscle of being good at dealing with uncertainty. When you're broken down in the middle of a road in Vietnam in a monsoon and you don't know how to drive a motorcycle and you still figure shit out, that builds character, right? So you got really good at making decisions for myself, going against the grain, not going along with what everyone told me to do, figuring shit out on the fly. And then again, those connecting points, like it's so valuable to be able to understand different cultures and see how things work different places, different world. It helps you become a better first principles thinker because you're no longer trapped in this box of how things need to be. You start to question everything. And the muscle building of learning how to question the world around you, I think is crucial to being a great entrepreneur, because you have to be able to rethink things that have been done for 20, 30, 40 years and reimagine them in new ways, and then have the courage to pursue them, and then have the wherewithal to be able to deal with the uncertainty to find the solution. So I think that experience holistically gave me those things.
It's actually uncanny how you described, like, literally Vietnam. So instead of Vietnam, for me, it was India. We were caught in a monsoon and literally had to like seek refuge at a local's house. It's like what Steve Jobs says, right? It's hard to see the dots connect going forward. And I remember during that process, I was like, wow, did I really just kind of light my whole life on fire? And like, did I make some huge mistake by going on this trip and leaving, like you said, a very high paying, prestigious corporate job? You know, looking back, it's like, wow, I absolutely needed to do that to get to where I am today. But in the moment, you have no idea. You have no idea anything's going to work out. You're like, I'm with a bunch of bums from Australia or something and hippies from God knows where, right? And you're sharing a bunk and you're like, this person hasn't showered in like 3 weeks. You know, from there, obviously now a few short years later, like we're both millionaires, right? Like that, it's incredible. It's actually like magical if you think about it. It's like, how could some kind of like, you know, smelly backpacker kids from just a few years ago now suddenly have transformed? And it's magic, right? If you look at that point, and a documentary crew went in and took a picture of you and me in our nasty, you know, backpacking outfit, and then showed it now, it's like, it's night and day. We're two completely different people. And I remember on my trip, I was in Thailand and I picked up a used book of Awaken the Giant by Tony Robbins. And that was
That's
one
so
of the,
I read that book on my journey too. That was one of the most pivotal books I personally read.
dude, I'm getting goosebumps. I'm literally getting goosebumps. I remember I was in the store and it just like, I don't know why that book called out to me, and I just started reading it. And I remember I underlined two things. One was like basically all beliefs you can't prove or disprove either way. So why not pick up empowering ones? Forget ones that limit you. And the other one was your mind basically operates through questions, right? So if you ask the wrong questions, you're going to get the wrong answer. So instead of asking like, why am I so depressed? Why am I so tired? Why don't you ask, what if I could do this? What would happen if I did that? Like, what would it feel like if I were to achieve this, right? Just asking just some of these very basic principles about how the mind works and things like that got me to go from a backpacking bum to kind of sorting my life out. And I want you to touch upon the self-discovery and self-creation journey, because I know you've invested at this point millions of dollars in your personal development. You've gone to courses, you've read books, you've met people. Like, talk me through that process, and how did you know beyond all things that money was well invested? Because I think a lot of young kids would be like, hey, I'll put it in S&P, I'll put it in crypto. How did you know that like you would get a multiple return on that money?
You know, it's funny, I didn't, because I've definitely invested in a lot of coaches that were complete bullshit, and I've lost a lot of money. But then I guess the learning from that is you learn how to be more selective and better filter people, right? So either way, there's always a lesson in something, right? And pain often is where we look. But where I started to go deeper, because I've always loved to read, and I was fairly self-reflective, especially throughout that journey. I've always been deep into journaling and a very curious person, and I always wanted to understand myself better. But what actually prompted my deeper self-discovery journey, where I really went 0 to 100, is when I got back from that trip, and I thought that trip would solve everything. You know, what prompted that initial trip when I was 24, I read a quote on Instagram, and it said, if your life was a book, would you want to read it? And I thought to myself at the time, no fucking way.
No way.
I was just climbing
at 9, get out at 9.
Everyone told me to do. I was listening to my mom. No offense, Mom, I love you, but again, you got to carve out your own journey, right? So I was just plugged into the matrix, man. I wasn't thinking for myself. I didn't have any courage. And so that quote is really what helped me launch myself and look at that. But I think ultimately when I came back from that trip, I had all the same problems is when I started. I thought, I was more interesting. I felt more confident because I had more stories. And at the time when I was younger, I was like, man, I don't feel interesting. I feel like my life is so bland and boring. I wasn't proud of who I was because I wasn't consciously writing my story. But when I came back, I had a badass story, and I had some sick Instagram pictures, but I had all the same internal problems, right? So I was like, okay, this is clearly, there's one thing that's consistent here, and that's me. So I went to a seminar, and it was the 5th or 6th time I heard someone talk about this seminar. But at that point in time, I was ready for it. You know, like the teacher appears when the student's ready. And it was this thing called the Landmark Forum, which people listening might have heard of, might have not. But big personal development seminar. And that was the turning point in my life, where I would say that's when I unplugged from the matrix. And I didn't even understand before that there were things called stories, and that we can live inside of them, and that they're not real. They're interpretations created from us as children. And we tend to live inside of those like they are the truth. And if you believe they're true, then that is your reality. And your whole universe and your whole experience of life shrinks or expands to the level of your beliefs and your perception of yourself. And that course opened my eyes up that I was living inside these limiting stories and limiting beliefs of this child that I once was. And that's when I went deeper. I said, okay, if I really want to grow and have this incredible life and be a leader and launch amazing companies and have worldwide impact and have love and just be the man I always wanted to be and admired, I was going to have to do a lot more inner work. And the only problem was not out there. I wasn't traveling more countries. It was going to be doing the hard inner looking at myself, figuring out what hurt me, how do I heal from it, what things are limiting my sight of who I can be, and how do I remove those blind spots so I can just step into my power. And so from that point on, I went all in on personal development with my friend Johnny, who I actually live with now. And we just went all in, man. I'm not talking about like a toe in the water. I'm talking about cannonball into a freezing lake, right? We signed up for every course. I mean, we probably did 40 to 60 hours of work per week on top of the job we were doing, right? Signed up for masterminds with other actually, I wasn't an entrepreneur then, just entrepreneurs. We'd get in proximity to people who were thinking differently and were in positions in life that we wanted to be in. Read a bunch of books still, but I was doing tons of courses, tons of one-on-one coaching. I probably spent 40 to 50% of my multi-six-figure income the first year just on personal growth, right? I didn't save a dime. I just knew that I wanted to make hundreds of millions of dollars, if not bigger. And so I knew that the only way to get there was to change my identity and change the way I saw myself, change the people I was in proximity to, how I interacted with the world. And I just knew if I could figure out the information, if I could figure out what's going on inside myself, that I could have that. So to invest a couple $100,000 for that was a no-brainer. And ultimately, you don't know. You don't know if that mastermind or that course or this thing is going to be the thing, but there is no silver bullet. It's a process. So instead of thinking, oh, is this the thing? Just do all the shit. Just do all of it. Like, I have a mindset where I'm a sponge and I just want to learn from every single thing. So you could put me in some shitty seminar, I'll still come out with something great because I'm there to learn. And if you're observing and you're humble and your priority is growth, you will come out with a takeaway. And as long as you apply those things, right, and you stay humble and apply those things and look for results, right? Not just hoarding information, because that's not learning. Learning only actually occurs when you've seen a result, true learning. If you stay humble to that process, you will go further than people who do not engage in that. So that was my thing, man. I have no choice. I'm obsessed until I die. I'll be doing massive amounts of personal transformation work because I want to meet who I can be while I'm still on this plane before I meet my maker. And the only way I have a shot at even meeting a fraction of that potential is to continuously dive in and vigorously seek to expand myself, to confront myself, and to grow.
When you came to visit me, one of the main points that I noticed was that you're in incredible physical shape, not just mental shape and also financial shape. So talk me through, like, what is your view on physical training? For me, it's the foundation of everything else. And I guess, how do you find time to do that? Like, you're obviously one of the most busy people. There's 1,001 things always pulling at your attention every day. Have you found the discipline and the time to find that in your schedule?
People might not want to hear this, but I think that your body is the first clear expression of how you feel about yourself. I think the physical condition you keep yourself in is an expression of your opinion of who you are, right? So unfortunately, more people take better care of their cars than their bodies. They'll take their car to a body shop, they'll post it on Instagram, and then they'll go slam a Big Mac and not work out for 6 months straight and then pound tequila on the weekends. That to me is not a high vibrational existence. So there's another trite quote that gets overplayed, but it's still great, is how you do everything, or how you do one thing is how you do everything. And it's just so true. It's mind, body, and spirit. Everything is so interconnected. So if you're somebody who says, I genuinely want to live the most extraordinary life I can live, and I am committed to being the best version of myself and giving that version of myself to the world at my fullest capacity, then fitness is a non-negotiable. You have to look good and be present and love yourself. One of my coaches, his name is Wes Watson. This guy is a legend. He's reformed how I see the world. He goes, look, man, if you're at the beach with your family and you're out of shape, you're not even present. You can't even be a good dad because you're wondering why, what people are thinking when they look at you. You can't even be present to experience the gift of life because you're self-conscious, right? You're self-conscious means you're focused on yourself. Totally. So when you transcend yourself, when you're so fit, when you're so wealthy, when you're so everything that you desire in your heart, you no longer have to even labor over thinking of yourself because you've just mastered yourself. And then life really begins because now you're out there in the world and you can think about giving to other people. You can think about how do you want to create opportunities for people. And it's just a much more fulfilling way to live life. So for me, fitness is the gateway. If I'm undisciplined in my fitness and I can't control what's in my control, which is what I put in my body, lifting weights, looking good, dude, how am I going to control the things that are out of my control, right? I want to make sure that I'm powerful in the way I maneuver through life, that I love myself, I admire myself, and that I can be an example to teach people how to love themselves. And how can I do that if I don't take care of the vessel that God gave me to maneuver this earth with? And I do believe that if you take great care of your physical health, fuck the time excuse, you're going to have more time on earth, right? People who don't take care of their health don't even get the time to live as long, right? And not even that, the quality of life Forget the quantity, the quality of life. When you're fit, healthy, you have great cardio, you look good, like your quality of life is so much bigger. So not only do you extend your runway in terms of years on the planet, but you extend your quality. So from all data points, it's so worth investing in your health. It's going to improve your identity, the way you perceive yourself, which can have a massive impact on the partners you choose for your husband or wife, your finances, how you conduct yourself in business rooms. Like, dude, when you look good, when you feel good, when you cultivate the discipline to show up and do the things that you want to do, it's fucking amazing. And last point on this, because I don't want to labor this too much, is when it comes to fitness, it's the easiest place to see growth, right? When you start a business, you can plant seeds for years and not even see revenue, right? And you're like, man, how is this going to happen? But the gym is the one place where you can go and, dude, 2 weeks in, 4 weeks in, 8 weeks in, if you adhere to a game plan and cultivate discipline, track your metrics, your macros, your workouts, you can see massive transformations quickly. And I think it's a great anchor to then set your life up for massive growth in other areas, because you get into the habit, the discipline of delaying gratification, of doing hard things, and of tracking your progress and adhering to a goal. Not to mention all the incredible emotional benefits, right? It just raises your frequency so much. If I want to like plan my life or do my visions, or, I'm stressed out because I'm running a business, first thing I do is hit the gym. I feel 1,000 times better. So I could belabor that on and on and on. But the biggest thing here, guys, is like, it's mind, body, spirit. You got to get your body, your mind, and your spirit right if you want to live the best life. And that includes body.
Dude, heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. So if I have a bunch of my business partners who are slightly older, they have younger sons. A lot of them are frankly lost. Some of them are dropping out of school. Some of them are depressed. Some of them are substance abuse. Some of them have no direction in life, addicted to pornography. What advice would you give to that kid? What are the kind of some basic steps? Because some of them, frankly, I don't even have the solution, because they're kind of like stuck in their own parents' house, right? They haven't even become their own man yet because they haven't started making money, etc. What are kind of the baby steps they can start doing to end up in a place like you and I, and being on their own, being responsible for every aspect of their own life, and kind of becoming a man, for lack of a better word, in a world where I think fewer and fewer role models exist for the younger generation?
That's a great question. I think there's a lot of different paths you can take. I don't think there's one solution, but I think I can speak to this uniquely well because I was that kid, right? I was hooked on drugs at 14. I was hustling at 15. I was that lost kid for many, many years, and I was going in a terrible direction. If I didn't have such a strong mom, there's no way I'd be sitting in front of you right now. I would not have been successful. I would have been a total fuck up. And that's all candor. And so if I look at what it means to be lost, it just means there's a lack of alignment, right? Because I do believe the universe guides you. Some people are like, it's kind of woo-woo, but when you're out of alignment with yourself, you can't hear the signals. You're lost because you're supposed to be guided by something, and that is you adhering to the person you're supposed to be, right? And so I think a couple things that are important to consider, and there's no particular order. If you want to find a path that is healthy and productive, where you feel good about life again, you feel like you're moving towards a positive direction, you need to be very mindful of your associations. So if you're hanging out with a bunch of people that are doing nothing, that are doing bad shit, and they're not going anywhere, you got to get away from them. You just have to. Like when I moved from San Jose to San Diego, my life quantum leaped instantaneously because I was no longer surrounded by all this negative, intense energy that was trapping me, not to mention just the associations, but your friends listen to you as your past. You need to get in front of new people that listen to you as your future, as possibilities, right? That don't see you in this limited version of yourself that you then reinforce yourself through their eyes. So you need to get around new associations, people that are doing positive shit. So go do personal development seminars, go get coaching, go get therapy if you have to process shit, but just get away from the negative circumstances, right? If a plant is dying or it's sick, you don't treat the plant, you treat the soil. That's your environment, right? You got to get into a new environment that has the possibility for healthy, productive forward progress, right? That also means if you don't have friends or mentors, just read. Some of the best mentors I've ever had are just virtual, right? I've read and done courses. I've read great books. Awaken the Giant Within is one of them. Atomic Habits by James Clear are a couple good ones to start with, but go read, get access to new information so you can see the world through a different lens, because right now everything you're looking at the world through is just negative. It's all you know, and it's creating the current reality that you exist in. So you got to get access to new information, new people, new ideas to see new possibilities that then you can act on, right? The other thing is just get rid of energy leaks as a whole, right? Make a list of everything that's taking away your energy. It might be pornography, which is just addiction to dopamine release. It could be negative friends. It could be smoking cigarettes. It could be doing cocaine. Whatever it is, you're numbing yourself out to the world, and you're looking for quick dopamine hits because you're not comfortable in your own skin and you're just not happy, right? So eliminate those energy leaks. And just by process of subtraction, without even doing anything, you'll notice a 10x increase. I'll also add to the last point we just talked about for 10 minutes, get in shape. If you are not feeling good about yourself, get healthy, because if you're not healthy, chemically, it's going to be really hard to be happy irregardless. So go get in great shape. It's going to make you feel better about yourself, and it's going to cultivate, you can get around positive associations, people that are actually working out in the gym, they're bettering themselves. Like that could be one facility. So those are a few things that I would look at. And then once you've got a good baseline there, you just need a goal. You need some goals to pursue that are worth your potential, that excite you. Because when you're lost, you're aimless. You don't have anything you're aiming at, right? And I don't care how successful, Dean, you and me, it doesn't matter how much money we make or how big our businesses get. The moment we stop creating goals, we're going to be lost too. We're going to be completely fucked and depressed. And it happens to me here and there when I lose connection to my vision, right? So I always have to go back and reconnect to that. We need goals. We need North Stars, because it's not the accomplishment of the goal that makes us happy. It is the pursuit. It is the striving towards. Dopamine is anticipation. It's the anticipation that keeps us excited. When we actually hit it, it's not that great. So that's why we got to always keep setting new goals that allow us to expand into fuller versions of ourselves. So that's it, man. Get rid of the negative bullshit, all the influences. Start reading, start getting around better people, get in shape, and then get a goal that you're excited about and start making progress towards it. And satisfaction, simply, is just progress towards a desire. And once you start doing these things over time, you're going to start feeling great about your life and realize, oh shit, my life is a gift. It is amazing. And all the shit that I went through and all the drugs or all the heartbreaks, all the girls, all those things were happening for me because I needed that pain to put me in this position now to change. And now my whole life is open to me. I can convert that energy into productive motivation to become the man I want to be.
Dude, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I think Andrew Tate, who's very controversial, he was talking about how one of his followers sent him a note and said basically like he was suicidal, was depressed. And Andrew took the time to respond. He said, listen, I can't tell you what to do, but I promise me this, go and get a six-pack first. And after you get the six-pack, you still decide you want to go through with whatever you want to go through with it. I can't tell you what to do. And basically what happened was that as that person started working out, as his self-confidence grew, as he started feeling more community and purpose in everything that he was doing, he messaged Andrew, like, I can't believe, I was thinking about doing that. Like, there's no way I'm the same person now that I'm in slightly better shape. And that's entirely true in my experience. And to touch upon what you were saying, even as a kid, I had a tremendous amount of energy as a kid. And so my parents kind of threw me in the swimming pool because they couldn't handle me. I was causing too much trouble. And so the finding avenues for that energy to have purpose and direction is something that's just amazing, right? Because I was training 5 hours every day. By the time I was in high school, I was a 2-time All-American, right? And so the same thing with business. So for me, I know that I am unhappy when there's a lot of pent up energy and I'm just kind of doing nothing. And that causes a lot of kind of the bad cycles of things that a lot of people get caught up in. And so if you're able to find outlets, positive outlets. So for us, it's the gym, whether it's, working out, MMA, tennis, whatever that is on the physical side, but then on the mental side and the creative side, business, I think is, and entrepreneurship in particular, is the best outlet, right? Because you don't rely on other people. Like any moment of any given day, there's 1,000 things I can be working on and I can be grinding on and pouring my energy into. And it's not like, oh, I did the task my boss asked me and now I'm twiddling my thumbs and next thing I know, I'm scrolling Instagram and doing God knows what, right? And so for me, one of the keys was finding those channels, those outlets, those crafts, right? That I was worthy of my energy and pouring everything that I have into it. And it's not even that like you need to have the cards fall a certain way. It's more that like, once you've poured all of yourself into something, the cards will fall where they fall. But the process of pouring yourself into that is extremely fulfilling. And it's also something that builds a lot of self-pride, knowing that like I did everything in my power to go after these things that I find meaningful. And even if it doesn't work out ultimately, I have no regrets because I've done everything in my power, at least as close to everything in my power as possible. So I echo that completely, man. I think if we suddenly one day decided to take a breather, chill out, start eating Cheetos on the couch, we would very quickly catch ourselves in those negative cycles again. So that's really powerful. So I know we're getting close to the time now, but Chris, I wanted to speak a little bit about your vision for the future. Like, what do you see for yourself, your business, 2023? What do you see for Quantum Talent? You've worked with some of the greatest VC firms, A16Z, some of the best Web3 companies like Yuga Labs. What is on the horizon for you?
So there's a lot of long-term goals here, but I would say the one point, my North Star right now, I don't like to set 10, 20, 30-year goals. I like to have a North Star, remove time, because I think when you introduce time too much, it creates a lot of emotional resistance at times, and it can kind of block your ability to manifest things. So my North Star right now is to take the company to $100 million bootstrapped per year with under 100 people. And the reason why that's significant is that's never been done in the history of the world in the search industry. There's no firm that's ever done that. I think the closest someone's got to that is 150 employees, and they took massive amounts of funding. Second to that would be 200 plus employees. So for me, why that's important is I don't want to build the biggest firm in the world, but I want to build the most elite. I want to build the highest impact per capita firm in the history of the world. So we have the tier one VC relationships with the A16Z, Sequoias, the number one VCs in the world, the top founders who are all raving fans of our work and really crediting us with helping them build these incredible companies. That's the level of impact that always excites me. And again, with under 100 people. So for me, I just want to work with the most hungry, passionate, capable, talented people in the world. And I want our brand in the market to be nothing short of world class. And I don't want that diluted by anybody. And so a lot of firms, they grow way too fast and they dilute that brand promise in the market, or they're exceptional, like a few competitors I know, but they stay really small so no one ever really knows who they are. So the first North Star, we'll see where we go from there. 100 million, under 100 people, continue building many, many more unicorns by then. But I just want to achieve greatness with people that I love. And for me, that's the metric.
Dude, I love it. I think this is why we're such good friends. I literally was having a team meeting last week. And I was trying to like capture in keywords why I push myself so hard and why I do what I do. One of the things was elite. Is like, I want there to be excellence. I want there to be professionalism. I want things to be buttoned up. I want like something that I respect a lot in like special operators is they're the best at what they do, right? There's like these, it's life and death situations and everything is buttoned up. Everything's well rehearsed and they face chaos with calmness because they have trained so hard. And for me, everything that we do in our business is it's okay to start off being terrible, right? Everybody starts off as a beginner, but it's not okay to never not improve and not get better. And so every single day I want to push our people to get better and improve and push towards the best versions of themselves and then create the best versions of our company. And I love that aspect of our shared value. So final question for you. I know I've asked you personally a lot about this question and I know it's near and dear to your heart. Talk to me about the law of attraction, what it means for you, how you've applied it in your life. There's a lot of obviously scammers out there, nonsense people who like sell lots of random things, but I know you've applied it very effectively in your life. I know it's one of your secrets to success. Talk us through how it works, how you do it, what is your understanding of it, and how it's applied in your life.
I'll do my best to describe this in very practical, easy to understand terms. Funny enough, I'm actually going to Joe Dispenza's workshop in Colombia in 3 weeks. And you know, it's funny, it's sold out, but I'm still going to get in. So that's therein practicing the law of attraction. So I'll explain this in the best way that I understand it, which is I'll break it down to a few granular parts first. So how you think and how you feel emit a frequency out into the world, right? So we have physical matter, but we're all just made up of energy. You, me, and this table, the podcast mic, we're all just made up of energy, vibrating at different speeds if you actually use advanced science to look at this stuff, right? And so the world is just energy. And the old Newtonian model used to believe that there was just cause and effect, that things just existed. But what we learned through the quantum model of reality is that you can cause an effect. you can change your energy and impose that energy onto matter and actually change the world. Steve Jobs was one of the best at this. He could create a vision and articulate that and send those emotional signals into you, into your mind and your heart, and get you to believe that his reality that didn't exist yet was more real than the thing that you could touch in front of you, right? That's him practicing the law of attraction. So the law of attraction basically just states that you attract to you what you think and feel at the level of your vibration, right? Which is just a fancy word for saying feeling, right? So the thoughts you think and feel have a massive impact, a direct correlate to what you attract into your life. So if the easiest example Tony Robbins uses is if I say, hey, look at the road, find a red car. All of a sudden you're going to look and find tons of red cars. Now look for a blue car, you're going to find the blue cars, right? But before I primed your brain to say that, you were just seeing a bunch of cars and you weren't seeing those, right? So what you think on, you're going to attract at that frequency. But there's a deeper law that complements it called the law of resonance. And that's, you don't attract what you think about, which is I think where people get lost. Like, oh, if I think I'm a millionaire, am I going to become a millionaire? That's not quite how it works, right? You have to think and feel on the equivalent of that, learn the information that person would have and take action consistent with that while holding that vibration without letting doubt, fear, and anxiety and these lower vibrations pull you out of it, right? But the law of resonance states that you attract not what you think about, but you attract who you are, right? You attract who you are. And that's a culmination of your thoughts, feelings, and actions, right? At a very base level, right? So when I wanted to be a millionaire and I was broke and I had just launched my company and I was losing money and I was in the middle of COVID and every signal around me wanted me to go fight or flight, amygdala firing off, sympathetic state, said, hey, look at your bank account. You're not a millionaire. Look at all these conditions. COVID's happening. No companies are hiring. Every physical condition I looked at first was saying you're going to fail, right? But if I allowed myself to stay in that vibration on that frequency, I would have failed. So what I had to do was go into the world of energy. I had to imagine what I wanted to happen. Okay, I see myself as a millionaire. I see all these clients. I see them saying amazing things about me. I see all these placements happening, blah, 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 blah. And I started to feel better. Okay, now I'm starting to experience a new reality internally, right? Which then prompts me into new forms of action. And when I'm on those calls and I'm thinking of solutions, I'm operating at a different emotional frequency that gets people want to help me. If you show up to a call and you're all, expecting it to go bad, and you're expecting yourself to fail, people feel it. They don't even want to help you. But when you're in a call saying, yeah, I'm building the greatest company ever, blah, 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 it hasn't even happened yet, but people are feeling the reality of what you're communicating, and they're getting pulled into your future vision that hasn't even been created yet. They're helping you create it, right? And so that's what I did. And I ended up creating this marketing technology and system that allowed me to get all these new clients, and I started seeing wins come in.
That's how we got connected, actually. It was one of the systems that you created.
I think you might have even been one of my LinkedIn robot outreach connections.
Literally.
Which ironically I've met some of my closest friends through. But that's it. You got to get on the energy of what you want to happen. You got to think and feel in alignment with the future that you want to create, not with the current conditions that are around you. And that is the superpower of this world, when your circumstances no longer dictate how you feel. When the results you experience now have no relevance to how you think, act, and feel. And you can stay in this tight bubble of focus where you're expecting great things to happen. You're enthusiastic because it's already done. You've created a reality. You're energetically matching that reality and feeling as if that person would feel when it happened, and thinking in alignment with that person. Eventually, in the quantum model, which is quantum physics, that you have to manifest that vision. It's a law. It's not like a woo-woo thing. It's kind of like gravity, right? If you jump off a cliff, you will hit the ground at a velocity. It's not going to feel good, right? It's the same thing. It's not like an opinion or a philosophy. It's just a law. It's how the world works, right? This is from people that are way smarter than me. And so that's the idea behind it, is wherever you're at in life right now, if you're not happy with the conditions, whether it's your love life, whether it's your business, your finances, your relationships, your body, whatever it is, your current conditions in your past have nothing to do with it. You can create a new future in your mind with the most powerful technology, even better than ChatGPT. It's called your imagination. And you can construct a new reality in your mind and just ask yourself, who would I have to become to experience this reality? And how would it feel to be this person who has these things? What would that person do? How would they breathe? How would they walk? How would they move? How would they conduct themselves in a business meeting? You can architect an entirely new reality. And if you choose to be that person in advance and can stick with that for enough time of being that person and taking their actions, not yours, that are aligned with that new reality, eventually that new reality superimposes your current one, and you will manifest what you desire. And that, I think, is the most powerful skill that you can cultivate.
Dude, well said, well said. Chris, we're right about at the limit now, but thank you so much for your time. You're one of the wisest, hardest working, kindest people that I consider a friend, and so I appreciate you coming on as a guest, and thank you so much for all your help.
Really enjoyed it, man. Thanks a ton for having me.
What's up, guys? That's the end of the show. If you enjoyed it, please throw us a like below and subscribe, and we'll see you on the flip side.